Good day, students. This is Dr. Mercado speaking. Welcome back to Accounting 1329, Payroll and Business Tax Accounting. And this week we are continuing with Chapter 4, Income Tax Withholding. And in this particular lecture, we are dealing with Problem 415A. Okay, let's jump over to the problem. Now, this problem is a problem under the supplemental section of the problems. So I went ahead and I included the supplemental problem set A. So basically it states that for this edition, the 2022 federal income tax tables for the manual payroll system with forms W4 from 2019 or earlier and 2022 FICA rates have been used. Okay, so we're going to be using the percentage method, but it's going to be calculated a little bit differently than what we were used to doing in the last chapter, because this is going to be for those W4s that are from 2019 and earlier. So if you can see here, we have the name of the employee, the marital status, the number of withholding allowances, and the wage or salary. Okay. In the last examples, we didn't have the number of withholdings. That has been basically removed from the calculations in our current years. But if we do get those W4s from 2019 or earlier, we still have to do these calculations. So it's important that we know how to do this. Okay. Now, if we refer to your book, section 414, so if we go over to our book, section 414, okay, we're going to be dealing with chapter 4 supplement. That is the section that we're going to be looking at. And then we have all of this information that deals with those W4s that are from 2019 and earlier, okay? Because we do have people that file our taxes late, okay? So you're going to be exposed to that, okay? So basically this section explains the withholding allowances. So it states that if an employee has a Form W4 from 2019 or earlier on their file with their employer, the law entitles employees to exempt a portion of their earnings from withholding by claiming a personal allowance and allowances for their dependents if they furnish their employers with the claim for the allowances. Employees may also claim special allowances and allowances for itemized deductions and tax credits. Okay, please make sure that you read over this section. It talks about personal allowances and all of that stuff. But it talks about your allowances for your dependents. So an employee may claim one allowance for each dependent other than a spouse who will be claimed on their federal income tax return. Okay? In order to be able to qualify as a dependent, the person must meet specific requirements that are listed on the instructions accompanying the individual's federal income tax return. Okay? There are 6 tests involved, which is basically relationship, support, domicile, age, joint return, and citizenship. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to skip through this. Make sure that you all read all of this information. It's very important. Okay, so this used to be the W4 from 2019 or earlier. This form W4 has changed. Now currently it does not look like this. And we can go back to the earlier chapter and we can see the differences. But in this form, basically the employees hired in 2020 or from 2019 or earlier, they had to use the number of allowances to deduct the taxes. This form contains withholding allowance certificate, detailed instructions, and worksheets for employees to use in completing their certificates. Employees hired in 2020 or later and employees with a change in their filing status or other adjustments will complete Form W4 from 2020 or later. Okay, so this is from 2019 and earlier, and then we have the newer form that we have to complete, which is for 2020 or later. That is why we have the differences in calculating taxes when we use the percentage method. Okay. So just make sure that you read through all of this information. What I want to get to is percentage method. Okay, so the IRS provides statutory percentage method tables for weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, and daily, or miscellaneous pay periods for married and single individuals. Okay. And then the way that we calculate taxes using the wage bracket method, for those tax returns that are from 2019 or earlier, it's going to be a 4-step process. The 4-step process is outlined in your book. Okay. So basically, the IRS provides statutory wage tables Like we stated, copies can be obtained from the district director or from the IRS online. Okay, those tables are included at the end of the textbook. I believe it's table 3. Okay, so we'll go over that in a bit. Okay. In the cases where an employee claims more than 10 allowances, the employer has two methods for determining the amount to withhold when using the wage bracket tables. So you withhold it as if the employee claimed only 10 allowances, or you multiply the value of one allowance for the applicable payroll period by the number of withholding allowances exceeding 10. You subtract this amount from the employee's gross wage that is subject to federal income tax withholding, and we use the resulting amount and column 10 from the allowances in the wage bracket table to determine the tax to be withheld. Now we're going to be able to follow these 4 steps to use this method of calculation. Now do not get confused. This is only for those W-4s that were that are from 2019 and earlier. Okay, W-4s that are from 2019 and earlier. If the W-4s are from 2020 to now, then we use the prior method that we were using in the beginning of the chapter. Okay, this is a supplemental section. This is in case you come across a W-4 from 2019 and earlier. Okay, so these are the 4 steps. Step number 1. We're going to determine the amount of the gross wages earned, the marital status, the number of allowances, and the frequency of pay. If the wage ends in a fractional dollar amount, the wage may be rounded to the nearest dollar. However, in this text, exact wages are used. Okay, so we're going to figure out how much did the person make and all of the corresponding information. Step number 2. We're going to multiply the number of allowances claimed by the amount of one allowance for the appropriate payroll period, okay, as shown in the table of allowance in figure 419. So you multiply whatever rate you get on that table times the number of allowances, and you get the number dollar amount. Okay, this is the dollar amount that will be exempt from taxes based on the number of withholdings. Okay. Step number 3, you're going to subtract the amount of the number of allowances claimed from the employee's gross pay to find the excess of wages over allowances claimed. So we're trying to find out how much is taxable. Okay, so in this example, the person made $915.60. Based on the number of allowances, they're not going to pay taxes, federal income taxes on $358. So the excess wages is $557.60. Okay. From there, we have to do an additional calculation to determine the actual withholding tax on the excess of wages over allowances claimed by referring to the appropriate percentage method withholding table. So we have the amount of the earnings minus the amount of the withholding. That gives you the taxable amount. You multiply it by a rate, you get a dollar amount, and then you add any additional taxes. Okay, and we'll go over this in detail. I know it can be a lot of information. We'll practice it in a bit, but this is a tax table that we're going to be used based on the number of or the frequency of pay. Okay, so depending, if you have 2 allowances and you get paid weekly, you're going to multiply your 2 allowances times those $83. If you are getting paid semi-annual and you get 3 allowances, you get 3 allowances times that semi-annual rate. Okay, examples are provided here. Make sure you follow along. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the problem so we can actually apply the problem to or this scenario to the calculation of our federal income tax withholding. And remember, this is only if the W-4 is from 2019 or earlier. If it's from 2020 and up, we're going to use the method that we were using initially. Okay, so if you go to your book, okay, let me go here. Okay, so we have the first part of the section. And in this section, 4.4a, we talk about the regular percentage method. This is how we would have calculating it, okay, using the 2022 percentage method tables. It says here with forms W-4 from 2020 or later, okay. Now, currently, we are going to be solving this problem. This problem is from 2019. So we are dealing with the supplemental. Chapter 4 supplement. Okay, so this is a section that we're dealing with. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to look for the information in this section. Okay, so let's go back over here. we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with Amoroso. Okay. So, Amoroso is married, has 4 withholding allowances, gets paid 1,610 weekly. Okay, 1,610 weekly. Okay, so we're gonna look at the weekly table, and the dollar amount for weekly employees that get paid weekly is $83. Okay, per allowance. So what we're gonna start is step number 1. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get the weekly pay. Okay. And I kind of like simplify the steps. They have like 4 steps. I kind of do it into 3 steps because the first step is basically just to identify how much did this person make. Well, this person made 1,610. Okay. Now, step number 2. Well, let's do it how it should be. Step number 2. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna figure out what is the amount that we are not gonna pay taxes on based on the number of withholdings. So we have 4 withholding allowances. And we're going to multiply that by my rate here, which is $83. Okay. And then that's going to give me, okay, 4 times 83. That gives me $332. So, because I have 4 allowances, I am not going to pay taxes on $332. I'm exempt from that. Okay. Then step number 3. I'm going to go ahead with what I got in step number 1, which is the weekly pay, minus what I got on step number 2, which is the number that I'm going to be deducting from based on my withholdings. Okay, so this is in step number 2, I'm calculating, okay, how many dependents do I have? How much of that is excluded or exempt from taxes based on the number of allowances that I have? So 1610 minus 332 will give me 1278. Okay. So once I have that, I'm going to go to my tax tables. Okay. So I'm going to go to my tax tables. So here I have the end of the book. Okay. This is the same table that I'm using. Okay. It's just that it's laid out a little bit different. But my $83 is there. Okay. Now I'm going to be using table C. Okay. Tax table C. So the numbers are fairly small. I'm going to open this in a new tab. That way I can see them a little bit bigger. Okay. Now, look at the title. 2022 Percentage Method Tables for Manual Payroll Systems with Form W4 from 2019 or earlier. Make sure that you are using this table from 2019 or earlier. Okay. So now this person gets paid weekly. So I'm going to be looking at the top tier. Okay, this person was married, so I'm going to be looking at this section. And the number that I'm looking for is that 1278, whatever you calculated on step number 3. Okay, so I'm going to look for 1278 on my table. That will be the 3rd line item. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get that amount at the very end. This is the amount of the excess of the wage that exceeds the amount of taxable earnings. Okay, the amount that the wage exceeds taxable earnings. So $645 of your earnings will not be taxable. Okay, so step number 4, I am going to get the 1278, okay, that we got in step number 3, and I am going to deduct that 645 right there on that line item, 645. Okay, and then that's going to give me 1278 minus 645. That's going to give me $633. Now that I've calculated that, I'm going to go back to my table and I'm going to look at the percentage in column D. Okay, in column D, my tax rate is 12%. So whatever number I got, I'm going to multiply it by 12%. Okay, so 633 times 12%, that will give me $75.96. Okay. And then after I do that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at column C. And that is the tentative amount to be withheld. This is an additional amount that's going to be held on top of that 12% tax. So for that 3rd tier, the tentative amount is $39.50. So I'm going to add that to my existing $75.96. So that will be $39.50. And then that will give me the amount of my federal withholding, $75.96 plus 39.50. So the amount of my withholding would be 115.46. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to insert a text box over here. So the amount of my withholding will be 115.46 for Amoroso. Okay, I'm going to do two more examples. That way you can get a hold or a better understanding of the process. Okay, that way you can see how it works. Okay, and then it's basically just repeat. Okay, so the next one I have is Finley. Okay, so step number one in Finley. Okay, and I like to break it out by steps. That way I know what I'm doing. So how much is Finley earning? Finley is earning $825. Okay, step number two. Okay, does Finley have any withholding allowances? No. So we have 0 withholding allowances. And we're going to multiply that, and he gets paid bi-weekly. The bi-weekly rate is 165. Okay, so 0 times 165 will give you 0. Okay, so that means that the entire amount, the entire 825 will be taxable. Okay, step number 3, I'm going to get my what I got in step number 1, which is 825 minus 0 from step number 2. The taxable portion we have is the 825. Okay, now that we've got that, we're going to go to our table, step 4. Okay, so I'm going to start out with my 825, and this person is single, gets paid bi-weekly. Okay, single bi-weekly. Okay, so we're going to go back to our tax table, and we're going to look at the bi-weekly one. Okay, we're looking at the bi-weekly column. Okay, and the amount of taxable earnings is $825. So that would put the person at the second tier. Okay. Okay, so let's see. So this person is single. We're going to be looking at the single column. So we're looking at 825. So that would be that third tier right here, 563. Make sure that you look at the right section. Remember, the employee is single. So we're going to be looking for 825 on the single table for bi-weekly. Okay, so bi-weekly, single persons, 825 is that third tier. We're going to deduct that $563 from that third tier. Okay, 563, we're going to deduct 563. And that gives me 825 minus 563, 262. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to multiply it by my rate. The rate on that tier is 12%. So I'm going to multiply 262 times 12%. Okay, that gives me 262 times 12%, $31.44. Okay, so that's the amount of my 12% taxes. And then I'm going to add any tentative amount to be withheld. So that third tier has an amount of $39.60. So I'm going to add, so basically we're working backwards. First we deduct the information on column E, then whatever we calculate will be multiplied what we get on column D, and then whatever we get we're going to add if we have any information on column C. Okay, so so the amount for that is $39.60. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add $39.60. And then that's going to give me $31.44 plus $39.60, $71.04. Okay, so the amount of withholding for this employee, for Finley, who is single, gets paid $825 bi-weekly, would be a federal withholding of $71.04. Let me just put that here. Okay, so we get the logistics, the 4-step process. Go by step, that way you don't get any errors. Okay, so let's do Gluck. Okay, excuse me. So step number 1, what are we going to do? We're going to figure out how much Gluck makes. Gluck makes $96.30. Okay. Step number 2, we're going to deduct any amount based on the number of withholdings claimed. Gluck has 5 withholding allowances. So we have 5 withholding allowances, and we're going to multiply those 5. He gets paid quarterly. If we look at the quarterly amount, it's $1,075 per withholding. So we're going to multiply, and let's see what we get. So we've got 5 withholdings times 1075. That gives me $5,375. So this is the amount that is exempt from taxes based on the number of withholdings. Okay, so this is why a lot of people want to claim a lot of withholdings. That way they get less federal income tax withheld. Now it's perfectly fine if you actually have 5 withholding allowances. If you make them up, what's going to happen? Okay, if you make up that you have 5, 6 withholding allowances, they're not going to take any federal in your paychecks, but then at the end of the year you're going to owe a lot of money. Okay, so it's very important that the correct amounts are being deducted. The calculation is intended to pay the taxes that you are anticipating or estimated to be owed. Okay, so if you lie, then it's going to catch up to you at the end of the year because you don't have 5 allowances to claim. Okay, so you should always claim what actually you have. Okay, step number 3. We're going to get the amount that he gets paid. He gets paid $96.30. We're going to deduct the exemption based on the number of withholdings, which is $53.75. And then that's going to give me $96.30 minus $53.75, $4,255. Okay. Now step number 4 is the more complicated. We will start off with whatever we calculated in step 3, $42.55. Then we're going to look at our table. Now, Gluck is single and has 5 allowances, okay? So we're going to go and we're going to look at quarterly, okay? And here we have the quarterly one. Let me open it up. Okay, so we've got the quarterly payroll. This person is single, okay? Gluck is single and gets paid quarterly, and the amount that we're looking for is $42.55, okay? $42.55 on the single section. So the $42.55 is that third tier, okay? That third tier, but for quarterly. Remember, we're looking for quarterly. So the amount that we're going to withhold is $3,656. That is the additional amount that you're not going to pay any taxes on. $36.56, okay? So then that's going to give me $42.55 minus $36.56, $599. Okay, that is your taxable amount. We're going to multiply that by the rate in that particular column. The rate is 12%, so we're going to multiply by 12%. Okay. And then that gives us $599 times 12%. That gives me $71.88. And then I'm going to add any additional amount included in column C. And the additional amount to be withheld is $256.80. Okay, $256.80 is the additional amount that we're going to withhold from this employee. Okay, so $256.80. So we add those two numbers together, $71.88 plus $256.80. That gives me $328.68. Okay. So that is the amount that is going to be withheld for Gluck. Okay. Step 1, how much is the employee getting paid? Step 2, calculate the exemption based on the number of allowances. Step 3, deduct step 1 from step 2 to get the taxable portion. Step 4, get the taxable portion, go to the tax table, locate the table, and figure out your exemption based on your wages. And once you calculate your exemption, you get your taxable portion. Once you get the taxable portion, you multiply times the tax rate on the table. You give a number, that number you add to any additional tax that will be imposed, and that will give you your total of $328.68. Okay. So I've gone over 3 examples for you. I think this is the process is the same. Okay, I think you have it now. You've got the 4-step process going on. Now, I am going to do Quinn real quickly because students tend to have issues with Quinn. Okay, and let's see what happens with Quinn. Okay, so Quinn gets paid $925 semi-monthly. Okay, step 2. Quinn has 8 withholding allowances and gets paid semi-monthly. So we're going to go to our semi-monthly, and the amount of withholding is $179 per allowance. Okay, so we have 8 allowances, and we're going to multiply that by the amount is semi-monthly, $179. Okay, so 8 times 179, that gives me $1,432. $1,432. Okay. So in step 3, we know that this employee earned $925. We know that he is exempt $1,432. So that means that the amount that he earned is less than the withholding allowance exemption. So this employee will not have to pay any federal income taxes. The federal income taxes will be 0 because based on the number of withholding allowances that he has, he is exempt from paying taxes up to $1,432. He only made $925, so that means that the entire $925 will not be taxable for federal income tax purposes based on the number of withholding allowances claimed. So because the number of the exemption is larger than the amount of the actual wages, the actual amount of taxes owed for that pay period will be 0. Okay, so just take that into consideration. If the withholding amount is larger, the amount of the withholding allowances credit issued is larger than the amount of the actual wages earned, then the taxes will be 0 for that particular employee. Okay, so this is basically some examples. I've already done 4 of the 5. Okay, I hope you got the logistics going on. Make sure that you refer to table of allowance values for 2022, figure 419 on your book. Make sure that you are looking at the right tables for this problem. We are doing the supplement. So this is for any W-4s from 2019 or earlier. Okay, so that basically when you look at your ebook, you're looking at tax table C. Okay, when you're looking at your tax table, make sure that you carefully review whether the person is single or married. Okay, because I have a lot of students make that mistake. They're looking at the wrong table. Okay, make sure that you locate the correct table. We've got weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly, so on. Okay, all of the tables are included here. Okay, if the numbers are too small, you can just right click on it and you open in a new tab, and that is going to open up a new tab with the actual rates a little bit bigger for you to see, or you can print them out, whatever works for you. Okay, but basically that is the way that we calculate using the percentage method for any W-4s from 2019 or earlier. So in this class, you've already learned how to calculate the percentage method for 2020 moving forward, which is what we're currently using. So our W-4s have changed effective 2020. And in case you run across anything from 2019 or earlier, this is the 4-step process that we have to follow to calculate using the percentage method. Okay, so I hope this video is of help to you. If you have questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. Please look over your syllabus so you can see my scheduled office hours. Please send me an email, a Blackboard message, Pronto message, whatever works for you. I just do want to remind students that if you are sending me any kind of correspondence, to please include your name, the class that you're in, the problem that you're working on, and your specific question or questions so I can address them. Okay, I get so many messages just with very weird email addresses, no name, no class, and just a general message, Miss, I'm so lost. Okay, I can't help you there. So please make sure that you provide me all of the details so I can be able to get back with you timely and respond efficiently. Okay, so that is it. Please make sure that you work on your assignments to get them done by the established deadline. And until next time, have a wonderful day.